Welcome to another episode of Articulated Points. Once again, I am Pat, and as always, I am here with Phil. Say hello, Phil.
Hello, Phil.
Hey, show him your ugly Christmas sweater. I have mine on, and I believe you have yours on. Is that right?
Yes, it's the season for cuddling with Deadpool and tacos and katanas.
Yeah, mine's a GameStop special. I happened into GameStop, and they had this on clearance like a month ago. It seemed like the wrong time of the year to be putting Christmas stuff on clearance, but I'm not going to complain. I'm happy to have it. It absolutely did. I actually got a sweater, too, with a Stormtrooper on it, which was awesome, but it's a little too warm for that right now, so I'm not wearing it. So today on Articulated Points, we're going to cover a few things. We're going to talk about some Kronoform stuff, because I love Diaclone, and we'll kind of cover what the connection is there. We're also going to cover Disneyland and Phil's adventures in Disneyland during Christmas time. And then we're going to talk about G.I.Joe, of course. So, what do we have this week? Do you want to tell them what we have this week for G.I.Joe, Phil?
We're going a little small for G.I.Joe. We're going to talk about Kre-O, or more specifically, Kreons.
Yeah, that's true. I think that we brought them up last time when we were talking about small G.I. Joes, so we figured we might as well continue that conversation. But basically, we kind of wanted to point out not just how awesome they were, but talk about some of them that surfaced online. Probably, has it been a year and a half now?
Oh, at least.
Yeah, I would say so. Basically on Facebook, on Joe Declassified, if you've not been to Joe Declassified on Facebook, make sure you go there right now, because there's always great information that's being posted there. It is a place where several people in the community that were interested in broadening the perspective of everybody, led by Nomad, Joe Declassified brings to light a lot of things that are lesser known. And probably about a year and a half, I think it's a year and a half ago, maybe it's been longer than that, some unreleased Kre-Os surfaced. So we're going to talk really quickly about those, just to kind of talk about those, and to talk a little bit about Joe Declassified, since it's definitely something worth visiting if you've not taken a look at that. But first, why don't we cover this guy? This is one of the Kre-Os that was not released, and it is just a Cobra Trooper, and it makes me think that perhaps he was going to come in a set. He did include a stand, and if it came with a stand, I kind of think maybe it wasn't going to be a part of a vehicle playset. It's a little bit difficult to know what exactly his purpose was. He has a bandolier on. He comes with a bunch of pieces that I've kind of put together to guess the way that they were intended to go. But the interesting thing about these figures that surfaced that I also want to point out is that they're not the original Kre-O mold. They are revised. They have a peg in the center of the body that goes down into the center post on the torso. So it kind of clips together a lot better than the original Kre-Os did. Some Kre-O figures, once you post them together, they kind of start to rise apart just a little bit. And they fixed that. They fixed that in 2015. So a lot of the Transformers were re-released with updated paint decos. So it would be like the same wave would have just come back out. And I believe Dollar General was getting those. Is that right?
Yeah, and also the hands have been retooled a little bit so that they can now act as a peg and clip onto bricks from the bottom.
At JoeCon, during the Hasbro panel, Hasbro did mention that there were several Kre-O figures that were just kind of waiting in the wings, ready to be released. And these have to be that. They have to be at least a part of that. I don't know if there are any more beyond the ones that we have here, but these certainly would have been something cool. Why don't you show us one, Phil?
We've got Dusty right here. And Dusty comes with two guns. He's got this M4, and then he's got a shotgun that I attached the bipod that was included in the bag. I think that's meant to replicate the FAMAS he had with the bipod on it in the 85 figure. He's got a lot of tempos on the front to replicate his 85 look with the desert camo. And then he's got these pair of goggles clipping onto his helmet. You'll see there's an antenna on one side. I'm pretty sure the goggles are from the Transformers Age of Extinction Crosshairs figure, so they're a little more techy than they should be, but they do the job.
Yeah, and I believe that the camo on him actually matches the camouflage from Footloose. It's kind of interesting. If you look at the two Kre-O figures next to each other, the camouflage pattern actually matches, which is interesting. They probably just kind of lifted the design off of one deco sheet and put it on the other.
That makes sense.
Um, the next figure I'm going to point out is another Tan figure, but this time it is Tan Grunt. He strangely includes a backpack that has 4 pegs on it, and what that tells me is that he most definitely was going to come with a glider of some sort. I don't know what kind, of course, because mine did not come with that. But he was ridiculously hard to find. I probably should just tell the story of how I found these. Basically, a few of the Kre-Os were offered to me, and you know, the first one that was crazy was probably Dusty, because somebody offered, you know, to sell me several of them that included CoverGirl, and whenever they showed up, CoverGirl was not there, but Dusty was. And so I said, hey, you know, I'm really excited to have this figure, so I'm happy. You know, the stuff that you sold me, I'm not unhappy with it. But I would love to find this other figure, CoverGirl, if you have her. And the person said, well, I never had that one. And I thought, well, that doesn't make sense because you have a picture of it. And they said, yeah, I've never had that one. So I said, okay, well, do you have this one? And I showed him pictures of Dusty, and he was like, oh, yeah, I do have that, even though the picture of Dusty was one that I took because he just sent it to me. So I said, well, can you get me a few of those? And he said, well, yeah, sure, okay. And so I bought a few of them, and friends of mine ended up with them. But the fun part was that inside that bag of Dusty's was CoverGirl. So finding her was just ridiculously difficult. It definitely, the seller that had it didn't quite understand what these were, and probably just had them organized in bags, and you know, had labeled them, taken pictures of them, and figured that the job was done. It may have been even some miscommunication between multiple people. I'm not sure. All I know is that things got a little bit weird whenever I was trying to buy them.
Given that a lot of them have tan or brown pieces, I'm sure they could all get mixed up very easily.
Yeah, but you'd think that I would have you would think that I would have ended up with a Grunt inside a bag of Dusties, that the two Tan figures would have been mixed up. And I mean, her legs are tan, but this brown jacket and the red hair should definitely have stuck out a little bit. You know, I purchased CoverGirl, I got Dusty. I purchased a couple Dusties, I got CoverGirl, but just one CoverGirl. So she's also very difficult to find.
It works. You got it that way. And I'm still jealous. I would like a CoverGirl. I don't have a CoverGirl yet.
Yeah, I've bugged them up and down, but the figures that I really just can't, have not found multiples of would be CoverGirl and the Cobra that I already showed. So what other figures do you have over there?
I got this little gray dude here. He's the Stinger driver. And amusingly enough, he comes bagged with an Uzi. So if you ever actually wanted to give an accessory to your 84 Stinger driver, just give him a Snake Eyes gun.
Yeah, not a bad thought. Some people may be actually thinking in their heads, well, that was a blind bag figure. I already have that one. That one's not unreleased. But the one that was in the blind bag actually has the straps of a Cobra soldier, just the basic trooper straps that go straight down. It's not the Cobra officer ones with the pouches in front. Okay, anything else over there?
Yeah, this is the one that really seemed to get a lot of people's attention. It's the hooded Cobra Commander. He comes with his gun. He's got the nice gold tampos on him. And then the hood is even removable. That's your normal Cobra Trooper face mask, but it kind of evokes the 94 Star Brigade head, so that works for me.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't actually think about that. I guess at this point, I just kind of take that mask underneath the Cobra Commander helmet for granted. Between the Star Brigade one and the Vintage Hall of Fame, that's just kind of what I think of whenever I think what's underneath Cobra Commander's cowl.
It's another mask.
So one of the things we wanted to do, because, you know, 'tis the season, I guess, or hopefully still 'tis the season whenever you're watching this.
It's 'tis the season enough.
Hopefully 'tis the season by the time we get it posted, but probably not by the time that you watch this. But regardless, we're all busy during the holidays, and so if you haven't had the time to watch it, hopefully you do before this is over, because one of the things we decided to do to To spread the love, like I mentioned, I had to buy a couple of Cobra Commanders because the same thing actually happened with this trooper as what happened with CoverGirl. I had to buy a couple of Cobra Commanders in order to find that guy. So that means that I have a spare Cobra Commander here, and he's waiting for a home. Does anybody want to give him a home?
So don't raise your hands all at once, folks. We can't see you.
All right, so the way to get him is to subscribe and comment that you have subscribed. If you're already a subscriber, then I guess all you have to do is comment. And we appreciate everybody subscribing, but we just kind of thought that it'd be fun to give one of these away, and we appreciate everybody who's been supportive, so that's what we're going to do.
Our entry period will be a week from the posting of this video. So whatever time it goes out on that day, add 7 days to it, and then we'll cut off. We'll be more specific in the description of the video.
Yes, please read the description for the exact details, but basically, we're just looking to spread the fun. And I want to mention also that if you're interested in these and other lesser-known things of G.I. Joe, definitely visit Joe Declassified. It's a large organization. I have been helping there a little bit myself, but there are a lot of guys involved, and they really love having the support, so I have to kind of send them a shout-out and say, go ahead and go over there and take a visit. They do various things like showing up at local conventions, not just, you know, the official JoeCon, which is unfortunately over, but also a lot of the local conventions. So that's going to continue. And they have a website, joedeclassified.com, also Joe Declassified on Facebook. And all of that is helpful to the more eyes on it, the more that everybody involved is more encouraged to put more out there, and it just becomes more fun for everyone. So definitely go over there and take a visit.
And we'll have links to that in the description as well.
Awesome. Okay. And then I believe next up you had a visit to Disneyland, as it were. How did that go? So we definitely had you there last episode, I think, for Halloween, or was it the episode beforehand?
It was 2 episodes ago.
2 episodes ago now.
Yeah, so I covered Disneyland for Halloween. That seemed to get a good reaction, so I figured, hey, let's do it again for the other big holiday, Christmas. And it's a big holiday over there. There's a lot of stuff. I'll show you in this video.
Okay, awesome. Let's take a look.
Hey everyone, we're back at the Disneyland Resort to see how the mouse does Christmas. I'm starting here in the lobby of the Grand Californian Hotel. Now, Disneyland itself has 3 hotels, the Disneyland Hotel, the Grand Californian, and the Paradise Pier Hotel. But while the other 2 put up some trees and do some decorating, they aren't quite as opulent as the Grand Californian. Take a look at this Christmas tree behind me. There's no other word for it. It's gigantic. As you can see, there's live music, a photo op with Santa, and even this enormous gingerbread house designed after the hotel itself. Both the Disneyland Hotel and the Paradise Pier Hotel feature opportunities to meet Santa, as well as their own set of Christmas trees. Disneyland Hotel itself features a lot of Christmas trees. Downtown Disney is also dressed up for the holidays, featuring Christmas trees and lights and baubles galore. Of course, the Grand Californian tree is nothing compared to Disneyland's. Disneyland's decorations are fairly traditional and can be found in every land of the park. In fact, there are so many items to go up that Christmas decorations start being installed well before Halloween has ended. In Disneyland, you can meet Santa in Pooh's Thoughtful Spot. As with Halloween, the Disney parks put out a special Droid Factory astromech for the holidays. But you can actually make this little guy year-round. As The Nightmare Before Christmas is about Halloween invading Christmas, the Haunted Mansion holiday is still in full effect. With the Christmas overlay at It's a Small World, you may actually find yourself in line for this ride. The Christmas parade has been a mainstay at the park for many decades, and my favorite part is still the toy soldiers. And of course, you finish the day with a special fireworks program. The holidays are also in full swing over at Disney California Adventure, with decorations all around the park. Highlights here include Santa's holiday visit at the Redwood Creek Challenge Trail. Cars Land is just as decked out for the holidays as they are at Halloween. Seasonal overlays include Mater's Jingle Jamboree and Luigi's Joy to the World. But the main event is the Festival of Holidays, a heartwarming celebration of Christmas, Navidad, Hanukkah, Diwali, Kwanzaa, and Three Kings Day. In addition to live performances, there's also several booths that offer small tastings of food and drinks from around the world. Some of the festival entertainment is Princess Elena's musical Grand Arrival, the Disney Viva Navidad featuring the Three Caballeros, and even the Holiday Toy Drummers. And there you go. That's a look at the holidays at the Disneyland Resort. There's a lot to cover, I know, and it took me a few days to get everything in there. So I hope you enjoyed it, and let us know what you think. Yeah, I like Disneyland. I just recorded this guy for like this whole set. That's what's actually the background music for this entire video.
Yeah, I noticed that you did that. I kind of like that you used it for the background music. I kind of like how much he's classing the place up. You know, everybody's there just kind of dressed in casual everyday clothes, and he's there, you know, in a tux. Why was that one tree sagging? What was the deal with that?
That was Goofy's tree. It was outside
Okay.
Goofy's Kitchen, which is a buffet at the Disneyland Hotel, and it's a character meet and greet.
That is a huge tree.
Yeah, up until 2005 they were real. So I'm kind of glad they're plastic now, because that was a lot to kill every year.
Yeah, I kind of wonder how big they were whenever they were real from year to year.
They were about that height, at least
Wow.
up until 2005.
Is there any kind of transition then from the Halloween portion of Nightmare Before Christmas to the Christmas portion of the Nightmare Before Christmas?
No, it's the same the whole way through. It closes in early September, opens mid-September, goes till beginning of January, then closes and reopens around end of January, February as the original Haunted Mansion setup.
Okay. I noticed that you showed those astromech droids. So one of those is it seems now to be like an annual thing that every year they're doing a Halloween and a Christmas holiday astromech. And then there was that other one that was one that you built to put the hat on. Is that correct?
Yeah, so they do a yearly Halloween and a yearly Christmas, but I haven't picked up all of those. Every once in a while you'll get a May the 4th if celebrations occurring in the nearby Anaheim Convention Center. But yeah, the one I have that's you can make year-round is this little guy. The Santa hat is an option you can put on any of the droids you build. And then the red and white body scheme is a droid you can pick out of all the pieces and put together. Looks kind of festive.
Now they're doing all these food and drinks from around the world in Disneyland. If you were in Disney World, is this the equivalent thing that would be going on at Epcot?
So they actually have it at Epcot because Epcot's got the World Showcase already right there. So that lends itself to, you know, global food tastings and wine tastings. And in fact, it started with the Food and Wine Festival that used to be in the fall, and now they've just added more festivals year-round so that pretty much the only time there isn't a festival running at Epcot is during the summer months, when the tourist crowds are highest.
So of all the things that you ate while you were there, what was your favorite one?
Oh, so there were two standouts. First one was the braised pork belly adobo with garlic fried rice. That actually had chicharrones on top, and oh my god, that was like a big chunk of pork belly. And it was so tender I didn't even need a knife to cut it. I just used my fork to pull it apart. And then I had like my last bite was almost pure fat. I ended up having that twice.
Wow.
And the other thing was the holiday stuffing mac and cheese. It kind of looks awful because it's like white mac and cheese with brown powder on top. It looks terrible, but oh my god, it was awesome. It was like stuffing or dressing just ground down and dried out, so it was like panko breading, but you could still taste it as dressing, and you could still taste the mac and cheese. Even though they're put together, they still each had their own distinct tastes, and they married very well together.
What do you think the odds are that any of those will show up again during some other festival?
Sometimes the really good ones show up on both sides of the coast. A good example of that I remember seeing earlier this year was Frushi. And that started at the Japan Pavilion in Epcot. That's like pieces of fruit rolled up to look like sushi. And so that got popular enough that it comes back every year. And then they even brought it over here to California Adventure.
Well, that's awesome.
And they also put out a cookbook for this event. So, you know, maybe I should look into getting that. Making my own holiday dressing mac and cheese.
Okay, so was there any of them that you probably would avoid? Like, was there anything that you probably did not want to eat again?
Yeah. So one of the things I was actually kind of looking forward to was the s'mores frozen chocolate milk. And the frozen chocolate milk didn't really taste like anything. It was just cold and wet, you know? It was kind of sad. I was a little bummed out by that.
I guess that makes sense. When you freeze things, they tend to lose their flavor because the molecules, not being as active.
But I'd rather have something that tastes like nothing than something that actually tasted overtly bad. And for me, that was the holiday punch with lime sherbet and Sprite.
Okay.
The Sprite was great. It was covered with whipped cream and sprinkles on top. I liked that part. But then the lime sherbet was just left over, and I am not a lime guy. I know they've made some lime sherbet type drinks over at Disney World, and those have been going over well, but I think people actually like that. I ended up throwing it out.
See, I do kind of like lime, so I may have actually disagreed with you if I had gotten to try that. So.
Well, I'm a picky eater, so.
So am I. I'm pretty picky as well. Yeah, and I usually don't go for fruit anything, so I can't imagine fruit sushi would have been anything for me. I probably would have been. I guess I don't like fruit and I don't like sushi, so fruit sushi is not going to rescue anything for me.
One other thing worth talking about: the Sip and Savor Pass. This actually came with little tabs on it, 8 in total, and that was like prepaying for the small plates at all the different booths, and that allowed you to taste a lot of them without having to spend full price on everything. I mean, you really had to kind of game it to get the most money out of it. But if you were an annual pass holder like I am, at 11 of the 12 booths, they gave you a little unique pin for getting something with the Sip and Savor Pass.
Why 11 of the 12?
Because the 12th one was only like champagnes and wines, and these are not, you can't redeem these for alcohol.
Makes sense.
But you'll notice 11 booths, but only 8 tabs. So I kinda was bad. It tapped into that whole collector mentality of gotta have them all, so I ended up doing 2 Sip and Savor passes. So I can have all the buttons. There's not a lot of resale value on these, so I don't know if I can really get rid of my extras so easily, but I am happy at least I have a full set.
Well, that's good. You went to great lengths to bring us a story. You probably went back for a second day, I assume.
Actually, in total, I think I went like 4 or 5 days just to make sure I covered everything, and even then, a lot of it didn't make it into this video. I think when I started editing, I had like 806 pictures to work with. And so there was a lot of cutting down.
Yeah, that's crazy. I guess it's true what they say that in order to finish the project, you just have to be willing to put some part of it on the cutting room floor, right?
Yeah, like I didn't even touch on the candy canes, which in the candy shop in Main Street, they will actually make candy canes in front of you, and they actually pipe the scent of peppermint outside that building. But they only do it on certain days, and you have to line up, and it's like first come, first serve. So they actually gave you a schedule to come and when to get it.
So are there any other food options of things that they do other than the candy canes and the things that you were eating?
Well, if you saw, there was a shot of one of the bakeries in the park that they'll do dipped apples and Rice Krispie treats and marshmallows, stuff like that. And of course, the main Festival of Holidays was the main food options for that. And of course, there's a lot of merchandise, even like annual pass holder specific stuff. There's the little green aliens from Toy Story. There's a popcorn bucket of those, of them in red. That was like only available to annual pass holders. And that was actually
cool.
a very hot ticket item.
And then, of course, probably should mention, what's on your head. You picked that up somewhere, right?
I did not pick these up recently. These we've had for a while. These aren't even the first pair of ears we've had. The first Mickey Santa hat we had, the ears were plastic. These are kind of a fuzzy fabric. My mom got one with a mini bow on it, and then she also got one that's a pink hat with the princesses and a little crown. It can get crazy, the amount of stuff they'll put out.
Yeah, well, I definitely think that I should mention, if I didn't already, that I really liked seeing the guy that was, doing live music. He definitely was classing the place up. There was just something that felt very, like, classic Christmas about a guy sitting in a tux at a piano singing old Christmas songs.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things I really like about the Grand Californian lobby. And actually, there's somebody there at a piano year-round. It's just, around Christmas they do the Christmas songs.
Oh, really? He's there all year round wearing a tux, singing songs?
Yeah, I mean, they've got more than one person doing it. Like, I think the last time I was there was actually a lady, but...
I didn't figure it was the same guy 365 days of the year.
It's like going into Nordstrom. There's always that one person playing the piano, and you're not quite sure what they're doing the rest of the time.
Okay, anything else you care to mention about Disneyland?
I ended up getting some merchandise this year. This is a big carrier bag that you could only purchase for $25 after you've spent $40 of merchandise. So this bag alone cost like 65 bucks. But thankfully I was buying things for other people, so it didn't cost me too much. Presents for friends.
Basically a bag to carry the merchandise in, then, that they sell you, like a special bag? Is that the idea?
I think so, and judging by the amount of those I saw in the parks, it's actually a very effective promotion. And then I also got this festive tumbler, mug, what have you. It was, a small upgrade for a drink I was getting anyway. I think this was the pomegranate lemonade that I got originally for it. And it matched my buttons, so, impulse buy. I can be weak to merchandise too, And then lastly, the free merchandise, after you've paid your prices, are the maps you can bring home. They're always kind of themed to the season. And you've got your main park maps, and then there's a little guidebook for the Festival of Holidays, talking about, what's on tap and where you can find the booths. I like that they're always full color and good paper. They don't cheap out on that. And even the Santa's Holiday Visit had its own little special map, because that's kind of a little maze area to begin with. So those are always fun souvenirs. The park maps you can get at the hotel, so you can get these souvenirs without having to pay anything, but they're the ones you have to be inside the park to get.
I think maps are one of those things that become more interesting, like, way later down the line, whenever things have changed, and you're revisiting where everything was whenever you were there a long time ago.
Yeah, I definitely regret that I don't have a lot of the maps from the 90s.
Yeah, definitely an interesting thing to kind of grab to make sure that you have it for later, whenever at the moment it may not even seem that interesting at all.
Yeah, I actually always grab like a handful of maps whenever I go into the park, especially if I've seen that they've changed the front design. I grab a handful because I know some of them are going to get beaten up in my backpack, and I at least want to have one that stays pristine, but then, I still end up with a bunch of extras, so sometimes they make good gifts too. I get those to friends whenever I ship them things.
Okay, so that brings us to our last topic of the night, which I kind of wanted to talk about Kronoform from Takara, because earlier in 2018, I was lucky to have won this catalog on eBay. It is a Takara Kronoform catalog. It actually has more than Kronoform in it, but Kronoform is the only thing that's actually called out and mentioned on the cover. So I think of it as a Kronoform catalog, and that's all the things that are on the cover. But it's as you can see, it's very thin. It's not a very thick book. And whenever Kronoform came out in the 1980s, none of the things that I got have ever had any kind of insert catalog, so it was kind of exciting to get anything at all. I do enjoy getting some of the Toy Fair catalogs for G.I. Joe and other companies. You know, well, I should say Hasbro. You know, it includes G.I. Joe in the Toy Fair catalog, but there's other stuff in there. But for Kronoform, there was never any kind of catalog that I could look through and see everything together and the way that Takara had planned everything out. So I was really excited to get this book in hand. Probably I should explain why Kronoform excites me to begin with. Back in 1984, roughly around the same time that I was being introduced to Transformers, I was also introduced to Kronoform. Late in 84, I actually received two things that introduced me to the world of pre-Transformers, even though at the time, as a kid growing up in the United States, I wasn't exposed to any of those things directly to know, hey, it wasn't like somebody came along and had the internet and said, hey kid, look at all the history of the Transformers brand. You just kind of had to guess your way through it. But in 84, one of the very first things that I received for Christmas was the Dia Battles. And it wasn't the real Dia Battles, it was actually the Kingdom bootleg Dia Battles, which means that it was a really high quality bootleg, and instead of 3 figures, it only came with 2. But I loved them. I enjoyed playing with them a lot. For those unfamiliar, this is a Diaclone figure, and comparing it, having something to compare it to in size, you know, there's a Kre-O figure. The Diaclone figures are really not that big. They are 1 inch. There's some people online that have been referring to them as Inchman. I have never heard them referred to as Inchman in anything Kronoform, Diaclone, anything by Takara at all. The only time that I have seen them referred to as Inchman is online. I would love if there's somebody who has the origin of that could mention it. That'd be cool. But I think that it stems from the thing saying that, hey, they come with a 1 inch man. You know, it's because he's a 1 inch man, not because he's 1 inch man. Anyway, they have several different names. But the thing that intrigued me the most was, as a kid, it's 1984, and you've been given this other toy lines item, and then you open up your Transformers, and Wheeljack has a canopy that opens, and then he has a spot for one of these figures in it. So I remember putting this figure in there and thinking to myself, there is no way that this could possibly be a coincidence. These two things are related. They have to be. And also in 84, there was a JCPenney catalog. And in the back, and in the catalog was, how should I put it? It was Multi-Force 14. Basically, they showed 5 of these figures in the set, as well as 14 ships that would combine to form 1 robot. And of course, that's exciting to me.
Wow.
And yeah, 14 little ships. The ships aren't very big, but they come together and they form 1 robot, and with it said that you got 5 figures. So I'd received 2 of these figures for Christmas, and I was playing with them with my Transformers every time I broke out my Transformers. I just loved them so much. So in the summer of 85, which would have been the following summer after that first Christmas of 84, where, you know, the United States and the world were introduced to Transformers, the following summer for passing, basically that's what I asked for. I really wanted this guy, the Multi-Force 14.
Ooh, that's a pretty robot.
It is. It's really awesome. But this is the one that was advertised in the Penny's catalog, and as you could see, he's pictured here with, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the drivers. And I was excited to get these to play with all of my Transformers. Fortunately and unfortunately, you see this box. This is the Diaclone one that they had advertised. Interesting thing I should mention about Diaclone is that Diaclone actually predates Transformers. The Diaclone brand was Takara's attempt to bring the Diaclone toys, which were one of the precursors to Transformers. Hopefully I'm making sense right now. It was their attempt to bring these toys to the United States in '83 prior to Hasbro And hopefully you've heard this story before. If you haven't, maybe we should cover it in a later episode. But they were bringing these toys to the United States, and they only did 7 releases. They released like 3 of the Autobot cars. They released what Hasbro would later use as the mail-ins for the Power Dashers. They were slightly different, but they released those. And they released the Multi-Force 14. And the one that I received was this one. This actually is so this one's my childhood one. This is the Kronoform Multi-Force 14. And I love it. They did new package artwork, I believe, for the box. It's really some dynamic artwork. I love this box.
Yeah, that is some great painting there.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell I loved this box because most of my toys at the time, I would discard the package. But this one had this beautiful scene on the front, and then, so much fun on the back of other things to look at. And like I mentioned, there were no package inserts, so this was kind of what was on the back, the cross-sell on the back, that was all I had to go on for the other items that were being offered. But unfortunately, there were only 2 figures included. Whenever they switched from the Diaclone brand to the Kronoform brand with the same robot inside, they actually subtracted out 3 of the figures. And I was pretty upset as a kid about it. I was distraught. I'd been looking at this thing for a long time. And my mother told me, well, why don't you write them a letter just to tell them, see what happens. And I was probably 9 at the time. And so I did. And in the mail, this is one of those blow you away customer service moments, and at least probably one of the greatest ones in my life. In the mail, after a few weeks after I'd written the letter of, man, it really stinks, what happened to the other figures, they sent me 5 of them in the mail. So I got the 2 that came with it. Yeah, really good deal. Most kids got 5. I mean, if they would have sent me 3, that would have brought me back up to what I was hoping to get. But they sent me 5.
I'm just trying to think of what the street value of that package now would be with 5 Diaclone drivers in it.
These I would see at the time at KB Toys. That's pretty much the only place that I saw Kronoform stuff. And here is another one. I love these. Of course, I've purchased these as an adult because I was able to go back and find them. Finding Kronoform at the time really wasn't that easy.
I can't imagine it's any easier now.
Yeah, it's really not that easy. They don't pop up very often. But the other thing that I got in 1984, and this unfortunately isn't my one from 1984, because that one was stolen as a child. It's very traumatic for me, so I don't want to talk about that. But I've since replaced it as an adult because that's what we get to do with our money as adults, right? Is relive our childhoods. So I've replaced it. It's this guy.
It's a watch.
This is the original item known as Kronoform. Basically, in 1983, Takara released Diaclone as a brand. And it didn't go so well. The deal with Hasbro happened whenever they met at, I believe it was Tokyo Toy Fair. And at that point, they kind of just, laid the Diaclone brand to rest with only 7 releases. And they followed it up, though, in 1984, with an official release. The other thing that I'd gotten in 1984, I should remind you, was just a bootleg of Dia Battles. So this was Takara's official release for 1984, which actually originally came out in a package that looked just like the Diaclone package, but it was entitled Kronoform. And eventually, this guy got to be known as the Robot Time Machine in an entire toy line known as Kronoform, which is what I just showed you. So most people have seen this. The commercial for it is crazy. They do all kinds of things like put him on his head, and they call that one mode. Lay him down, and that's a spaceship. Twist the watch band around, and that's another thing. We probably should insert that because, to be honest, it is pretty hilarious if you watch that.
This is the world of Kronoform, the robot time machine that can transform. Transforms into a battle station. Transforms into a galactic shuttle, cosmic tank, a solar creature, a robot, and more. Kronoform. The robot time machine that can transform. Each time, you tell time. Kronoform, the robot time machine. Each sold separately from Takara.
So I had this, and I had the other thing, and that made me super interested in Kronoform in general. So let's take a look at the catalog. I will kind of talk about some of the things that did and did not come out, because the fun part of this is that while Takara was busy importing some of their toys from Japan, Kronoform, while it's mostly Diaclone, it actually does include a little bit of Microman. And Microman and Diaclone, as you may or may not know, were also the two primary resources that were used for Transformers. So I have to think that what was going on is that Hasbro was passing on items.
It could have been as simple as they just didn't have the shelf space or the space in their line for them at the time.
Yeah, taking a look at this catalog, though, one of the first things covered in it is Kronoform Scorpia. Interestingly, Scorpia actually came out much later on as a part of the Transformers Generation 2 toy line, along with the Kronoform Robot Time Machine. And the Robot Time Machine, at that point, he kind of had the generic name Autobot in Generation 2. I did have Excalibur. Loved that one. It actually shoots little pellets.
Did the American release shoot little pellets?
Yeah, I probably should mention the American release did not shoot the pellets, but only because they didn't include them. It actually did still include the spring mechanism and everything necessary to do that. And so if you took a little piece of paper and balled it up real tight and stuffed it in there, yes, it would shoot little wads of paper. The robot radio is there in red, and I do have a robot radio. I just managed to get one of those earlier this year as well, actually, and it looks a little different than what is pictured. All of these did come out in several different colors, that if you look at the description down below each item, it does tell you what colors they were planning on releasing. Whether or not those ended up coming out, they're kind of hard to track down, so it's kind of hard to tell.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, the High Band Blaster is a good one. Probably one of my favorite 1980s package art, because what do you do when your item is just a boombox? You turn it into a spaceship boombox.
That follows,
so
yes.
It kind of has this like Defender thing going on. And then the Transformers logo is on the next page, and that's kind of interesting because what they actually did with some of these is they branded them Transformers, so there was a little bit of a cross-promotion there. So some of these actually are official Transformers. Kronoform packaged them with both logos on the package, or rather in the package. This is Kaltor. He is the transforming calculator watch, which I felt so awesome at the time because in the 1980s, just having a calculator watch was cool. But I had a Transformers calculator watch, which made me even cooler. And this is also one of my childhood ones.
Yeah, you just topped my dad's watch.
Did I?
He had the calculator watch.
Yeah, but they're cool. But other than that, there are several of them that were released with the Transformers brand that you can kind of see on that page. Okay, moving on to the next page. One of the things that I do enjoy pointing out is that the green Diaclone driver, the pilot or Dionaut, that color green does not seem to have ever been released. So what these toys were is kind of strange. I'm not sure if these actually were items that were just taken out of the packages that they were originally from in Japan and just, you know, had a photo shoot, or if they actually ran some new samples of some things. That green pilot kind of makes things a little bit confusing. And there's actually two of them pictured, which is extra confusing. Probably the most fun in the entire catalog for me is the fact that these items, not only did they show some of the things that did not get released in the United States, but they actually show us what the Kronoform names were going to be. Okay, moving on to the first page, we actually only have 3 of them that were released. Their Diaclone names were Warudaros, Dia Attacker, and Battle Buffalo. And in the United States, those 3 were referred to as Wargon, Attack-On, and Togor. Yeah, I have a little bit of trouble remembering the names of them for Kronoform sometimes, just because online I've gotten so used to thinking of them in Diaclone.
Does Torgon mind the house while the master is away?
Torgo, not Togor. You're confusing Torgo and Togor.
Am
These
I?
are 2 completely different things. But one of the really cool things down at the bottom for G.I. Joe fans, there's one called Cheeton, which is one of the attack cars from Diaclone. Basically, it's cool because it's the Lamborghini Cheetah, which you probably know better as being the inspiration for the G.I. Joe Vamp. And I have that here. Basically, these were just little vehicles that you'd pull them back, and it was somewhat like Mask, because they would then pop open and have various weapons. They didn't turn into a robot. They were just something for the Diaclone drivers to pilot into battle and to usually fly off in. There's one that's a drill, one that looks like maybe it's a tank, and one that turns into a plane. And the one that looks kind of tank-like is called the Vector Van here, and it does turn into a one-box vanette, which is what Ironhide and Ratchet transformed into. So you have a little bit of connection there with the rest of the Transformers line.
So not quite Ironhide.
Not quite Ironhide, yes. So just kind of covering what some of the names were. Diaclone Fortress X, which is an awesome toy that has like elevators in it and pods that sends the robots up and down inside of himself and then shoots things out. But it was going to be known as Sultar. Fans of the current Diaclone toy line, which we definitely will be getting to in a later episode, everyone's going crazy right now for the biggest release, which is the Big Powered. And Big Powered is actually pictured here as number 11, and he is called the Axion Flexor. That name actually sounds fun to me, the Axion Flexor. And then the Kronoform Cyclor. That one's interesting to me because, as I said, not everything was Diaclone. This one is one of the Micro Ridors. The Micro Ridor was one of the toys that was a part of the Microman toy line. So it is not from Diaclone, it's from Diaclone's predecessor, Microman. Moving on to the following page, we have, strangely, numbers 6, 7, and 8 are pictured. Numbers 6 and 8 actually combine to form number 7, which is confusing to me why they would be pictured separately in the Kronoform catalog. Basically what they are is another Microman toy that was called the Microman 721 formation, where you had these robots that if you looked at the robots alone, they really look a lot like Reflector, because Reflector was from that same toy line, and they were micro robots is what they were called. And each one could turn into its own little vehicle or battle station or whatever it may be to go along with the other Microman toys. But these were called the 721 because you either had 7 robots, 2 robots, or 1 robot. So you had 7 little robots that could combine to form 2 robots, and then those 2 robots would combine to form 1. So in this case, numbers 6 and 8 that you see here are actually the 7 robots combined to form those 2, and then those 2 could combine to form 1. And I don't know if maybe they were going to release these as individuals that you could buy either separately or together, because that would be weird. But they definitely have different names. So they were going to be, number 8 is called Kronoform Chromatron, and number 6 is Kronoform Zeton. So Chromatron and Zeton would then combine to form number 7, who is Argon. So we just name him after a gas, I suppose.
Can you imagine if Mego had actually released these things in the Micronauts line?
Yeah, that would have been crazy, would it not have been? Basically, those were not produced, and the other thing not produced is the Skybase. The Diaclone Skybase is number 10, and here is known as, well, the Deltron Skybase. So they're keeping roughly the same name for that one. The items on here that did get released, number 3 and number 2, those are actually part of the original first year of Diaclone in Japan. There they were the Diatrain and the Cosmo Roller. Here they are the Modulator and the Protectron. But those, of course, did get released. So did the, and I always mispronounce this one, Kronoform Invicepton is the other item. Strangely, I have a trouble remembering that, and I realized finally while I was looking through this catalog why I did, and it's because that's called the Invicepton, but then if you look on the first page, the ship, number 881 on the first book, is the Inviceptor. So the Inviceptor is one thing, the Invicepton is another. Very confusing.
Yeah, I would have trouble keeping track of that.
Yeah, and then of course there's the awesome Multiforce 14, which was in the Diaclone line known as the Gats Blocker. But it's an awesome toy, and it's cheap, so if you want one, Definitely look out for that one. Moving on to the last 2 pages, because as I said, this catalog is very thin, so this literally is all the more pages that it has. You have Robotroid on the left and Dougram on the right. Dougram was an anime that Takara had licensed, and they were going to release some items. I actually don't think that any of these things got released in the United States. I tried to find something on this, but I looked these up, and of course they did have releases in Japan, but any kind of release within the United States, I just can't find anything on it. So I'm thinking that nobody picked it up, and if the anime had been popular at the time or had aired, they probably would have sold like crazy, but without that support, probably none of the stores wanted them.
That's too bad. Seems like a missed opportunity.
Robotroid, though, I kind of have a relationship with that as well. I had number 412, who is Space Racer in Robot. But I had the one that looked like it had the Firebird on the hood. This was a toy line of building blocks. These were not Lego compatible because at the time that the Lego still had the rights to that specific size. So other companies were building things that were similar but not compatible. So Takara released their own building block toys in the form of Blockcar, B-L-O-C-C-A-R, in Japan, and all of those items were re-released in the United States as a part of Robotroid. And they are all pictured here, and I ended up with one of them. It was really cool. I liked it. I played with it a bit. All of them had the motor where you pull them back and they go, and they also, you had to disassemble them and reassemble them to get them from robot form to vehicle form, so there wasn't a lot of direct, easy play value there alongside Transformers, but I would always have him hanging out in the base with the other Autobots. I liked them. I did know at the time that there was some kind of connection, at least from the company, Takara, just from the package. But that does it. That is the entire Kronoform catalog that I purchased. I'm really happy with it.
That is quite the catalog.
It is quite the catalog. There's just a couple of pages, but I have to think to myself, what would these things have looked like at retail? Like, obviously, new art was done for the ones that were released. I would love to see some Kronoform package art for Fortress X. If that exists, my mind would be blown, because that box would be relatively large. He's a big toy. Like, that toy is bigger than Metroplex. So if that was going to come out in the store, Metroplex was a big deal. They would have had to have made a bigger deal over Fortress X, or I've already forgotten what his Kronoform name is. That's why I bought the thing. I love...
We need to put a little "Hello, my name is" tag up there.
Yes, hello, my name is Sultar.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah, definitely we're going to talk about Diaclone a lot more, because I love the new toy line for Diaclone. Whenever they brought it back, it almost was like the universe was speaking to me, because as I stated, in 1984, the first thing that I got, my introduction to all of this, was Diabattles. And that kind of made sense because he was a part of the 1980 Diaclone toy line, so he was one of the earlier things released. So it kind of made sense that they would choose him whenever they brought back the current Diaclone stuff. But the fact that the first thing that I was introduced to happened to be the first thing that they were decided to re-release a new one of kind of made me jump on right away and get really excited, because those toys are amazing. Okay, so I guess that brings us to the end of the episode. Please, like I said, pay attention to the instructions below to perhaps get yourself a Cobra Commander that we will mail you. We'll be happy to do that. It's kind of just spreading the fun. I definitely love this figure. It definitely was one of the highlights of G.I.Joe for me when I found it. Do you have anything to add, Philip?
Just that it is a really, really cool looking Kre-O, and I love the look of that mask and how the eyes just kind of fit perfectly in the little holes there. And yeah, you definitely want to be able to get this. So enter our giveaway, spread the joy, like, share, and subscribe. That's how we can go on making these for you.
Okay, we will see you next time. Thanks for taking a look.
Thanks for watching this episode of Articulated Points. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'd appreciate it if you would like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to learn more about some of the toys featured in this episode or want to follow us on social media, links are in the description below this video.